I think Hiba can start, but we can't hear you.
Assalamu alaikum.
Now we can hear you. Okay.
I'm trying to figure out how I can share my screen with you all.
But you have to be the host, I think, to share the screen.
Yeah, inshallah, if you become the presenter. Sorry, inshallah, if you could drag that little icon that's on your host, that little circular WebEx icon onto the presenter.
Yeah,
Inshallah.
Hiba, you are the presenter. So, you should be able to share your screen if you go to the share tab and then do share content.
Okay. Sorry. The share tab is, what is it? Sorry, I haven't used WebEx before.
The top left where
Okay.
there's like file, edit, and then share.
Okay, got it. Thank you. Okay. So hopefully it should work. So assalamu alaikum, everyone. I do have to begin by saying that it's such an honor for me to be here with you all today. I am actually someone who was raised at the Islamic Center of Hawthorne and pretty much raised by Shimni and our beloved Sheikh Othman Raha. And they both shared some very happy times in my life. My marriage to Adib, who's actually also from ICH and from the beloved Arafa family, and some of the saddest moments of my life. So it really is an honor to be here with you all today. So I did want to begin by talking about the concept of emotional well-being and how we can cultivate that given the current pandemic that we're experiencing today collectively, and how we can get through it, and also how we can better prepare for Ramadan as we kind of go through this unique experience. Can everyone see my slides, Sarah? Can you see them?
Yeah, it's showing up.
Okay, awesome. So to begin with, I just want to cover one of the main things that relate to our ability to feel good and remain in a positive state is each and every single individual's perception of dunya. And we hear the term emotional wellness a lot, and we may think of certain individuals in our lives who strike us as resilient individuals and who are able to withstand the trials and difficulties of life. But in psychological terms, what emotional health and well-being actually means is when you look back at your life, you see a rough continuum of being in a positive state of emotion. And so when I look back at my life, I don't find that I oscillate between a lot of major ups and downs. I get thrown off the path sometimes, and things hit me unexpectedly, and it's difficult to handle. However, for the most part, there aren't major oscillations or ups and downs in my emotional journey. And so that's typically what being emotionally healthy means. It means that I'm able to remain like the eye of the storm, like our beloved alayhi salatu wasalam. Many storms would unfold around him, and he would be able to remain calm and composed, irrespective of what he was experiencing. And so that's a very similar thing that we want to emulate. We want to remain composed. We want to be able to remain calm in the midst of a storm and not be as heavily impacted by everything that's happening around us, because everything outside of us is outside of our reach, outside of our control. And everything within us, we have more control and choice over. So establishing that understanding before we begin. Now, some of the greatest disruptors of our emotional states are trials and tribulations, or what are known as throughout the Quran as ibtila'at. And I always explain ibtila'at to be that we are all vessels that contain dispositions and personalities and characteristics and things that we like and things that we don't really like, and our goals and our dreams. And we don't really know what's inside the contents of one another when things are going well. So if someone smiles at me, it's very easy for me to smile back. And if someone greets me and asks how I'm doing, it's very easy for me to return the same. However, whenever there's some friction or a situation of conflict, that is when my inner contents are truly revealed. So my vessel and the vessel of the other person collide, and I'm able to see what's inside of them, and they're able to see what's inside of me and who I really am, not who I think I am and not who I say that I am, who I really am. And so ibtila'at are a moment of revelation. It's that moment of impact between you and someone else in which you get to see someone else's true colors. You get to see how they really are. Now, I know that the way this is often framed is that that's, not a good thing. I saw someone's true colors, or I had no idea that this is how she was all along, or I didn't know that they didn't have good intentions for me or didn't wish well for me. However, it is actually out of Allah's mercy that He unveils for us to see very clearly our flaws and our shortcomings, because we don't want to die in that state. We want to better ourselves continuously, right? And we want to grow, and we want to seek opportunities to better ourselves, every situation and opportunity that we get. And so that's a mercy from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala when He unveils something for you. And typically it's your family members that will do that unveiling, right? Or your spiritual teachers, which I really hope every single one of us has a spiritual mentor. I know for me, a big part of that was Sheikh Hamdi and Sheikh Ahmed, and who I work with at the Khairi Center as well. And so, having someone who can mirror back to your partner and your spouse, right, your siblings, and your closest friends. So that is really the concept of ibtila'at, and ibtila'at are the biggest, sometimes, disruptors in our emotional states. Now, our eyes are really, alhamdulillah, if you are blessed with the gift of sight, our eyes are really, our bodies contain this internal world. And that is projected through our eyes, just like we project content onto a projector. It's projected out into the world. And so the way I see things is colored by what's inside of me. I see things as I am, not as they are. And that's very important to understand, because we often look at things and we think that that's reality, right? We think that, this person is the way that they are, and that's according to my perception, and that's accurate, right? And I'm dead set on that. However, it's very important to understand that oftentimes it's the way I am and it's who I am that colors the way that I see the world and the way that I see other people. And so it's not often accurate. And that's why seeking shura is really important. And that's why speaking to trusted individuals about your perceptions of reality, or seeing a professional who provides psychospiritual therapy really helps, because oftentimes not everything we see is based in reality and it's not accurate. Now, moving on to understanding the nature of the mind, and this is very empowering, because the mind is actually directly tied to how we feel. Everything, the birthplace for how we feel begins in the mind, right? And everything has a place of origin. Now, the place of origin for our feelings is the mind. And so when you want to know why you feel the way that you feel, and if those feelings are very repetitive, are very recurring, I actually need to go back to my mind and see what the quality of my thoughts are. What do I often think about? What makes me happy? What makes me upset? What might be a trigger for me? And so that's the place that I need to be looking. I shouldn't be focusing on the emotions themselves, because that's very secondary. Now, many research studies, many scientific research studies have actually proven that the nature of our minds is not to be in the present. And our minds, the mind's nature, it's by default, its nature is to wander. So we wander, we may be sitting in a meeting and you're thinking about what you're going to have for dinner, and you're thinking about, that you have a class that you have to attend. You're thinking about all the millions of places that you have to drop your kids off at. And about how you have to fit in prayer, and you have to make time to do your daily litanies or your awrad, right? And so there's a million things that cross our minds, and it's not dependent on where we physically are. It's really dependent on where our mind is, because I can be somewhere, but my mind can be elsewhere entirely. And so now it kind of makes sense why whenever you go to bookstores or online you're researching, right, you see so much content on presence and how to cultivate, presence and how to be present in your life and how to be present with your loved ones. And that's because of the recent findings of the nature of our mind to wander. Now, also, it's important to know that the medial prefrontal cortex and the anterior cingulate cortex, which are two areas of the brain, one is responsible for thinking about the self. So whenever I think about myself, that is a direct neighbor of the department in my brain that detects errors, right? That looks for fault, that looks for error. And so those two areas are directly tied to one another. And so it makes sense now why we can be so hard on ourselves, why we are often identified as being our worst critic. And that is because that's how our brain is wired, right? And this requires training. I have to train my mind to think positively about myself and to have more self-compassion. Because if I can't be compassionate with myself, then I can't authentically actually be compassionate with other people. And that is a requirement in our faith. And that was embodied in the example of Sayyid. Now, the default state of every single person, so me and you and your neighbor and our friends and everyone, in the absence of a serious illness, such as Alzheimer's or dementia or schizophrenia, the default state is dissatisfaction, right? And in the presence of a serious illness, the default state will look different in the brain. But generally speaking, our default state of the brain is to be dissatisfied. I'm not generally happy with my life. I'm not generally happy with what's happening to me, and I'm not generally happy with my circumstances. And so this is something also empowering to understand, because once I know that, I know where my work needs to be focused. Also, presence leads to contentment, right? According to Dr. Dan Siegel, who is one of the main researchers on the mind, and he has many books on the way that the mind works in relation to psychology. He talks about whether your mind wanders in the negative or in the positive, they both lead to the same destination, which is to be dissatisfied with the current state of your life. Now, if you're going to take one thing from this presentation, I'm trying to make it as short as I can because I know it's late for everyone, is to really understand this concept, because this area is an area in which I do a lot of work with a lot of clients. And this is an area that troubles a lot of people, and it wreaks a lot of havoc in people's lives. It actually leads them to argue with their children and have very strange relationships with their children and teenagers. It also has to do with divorce. You make decisions that are so major based on things relating to you and relating to your mind that could be sometimes unavoidable. Now, Imam al-Ghazali, in his tafsir of Surah al-Hujurat, and specifically Ayah 6, when the ayah states, Ya ayyuha alladhina amanu, in ja'akum fasiqun binaba'in fatabayyanu. And typically this ayah relates to, oh, you who believe. Whenever you have someone who approaches you that has questionable character, you haven't traveled extensively with them, you haven't dealt with them in money and monetary transactions, and you haven't lived with them, then you can't really, and even then, people might still act a little bit out of character sometimes depending on their circumstance. But typically, if I haven't done any of those mentioned, haven't had those experiences with individuals, as the hadith mentions, is the way to really get to know someone, then that person's character, if someone comes to me with news about a coworker of mine or a close friend of mine or a community member who's doing something that's unethical or illegal, I can't just take anything that I hear and believe it and run with it and go and tell others. That is actually very against our faith and is considered a sin, because you could be harming someone's reputation, you could be harming their character, and you could be wrong. So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is mandating, He's making it a requirement for us to verify anything that I hear from someone who I can't absolutely guarantee their character. And so this ayah, Imam al-Ghazali states that is usually in reference to individuals in our lives that we may deal with. However, this ayah actually also relates to afsaq al-fusaq, right? The most corrupt of creation. And that is shaitan, right? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala created shaitan, and he basically the root word of shaitan is shatana, to be very far off or far away from the truth, from the straight path. And shaitan comes to us internally with news, right? And that piece of news is in the form of thoughts. Okay, and so it's not just external; it's internal. So the battle is really within. It's internal. It's not external as we may perceive it to be. That's all background noise. That's all distraction. So he comes from within, and he knows what your insecurities are. He knows what you don't feel good about, and he knows exactly how to target you. I mean, he's been doing it since Sayyidina Adam, the time of Adam alayhi salam, and so he's become a pro at it. And so he knows exactly how to target you, from which angle, what to whisper to you. And of course, there are shayateen who don't sleep, and that's their full-time career, is to whisper to you in the areas of your weaknesses, your desires, your things that are not very sound. And so his language is one of despair. So oftentimes what I find is when someone comes in and they're experiencing a lot of depressive symptoms, a lot of anxiety-related symptoms, a lot of symptoms relating to doubt, doubt of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or doubt of themselves. They doubt themselves a lot, and they don't have that sense of confidence rooted in humility, not confidence rooted in arrogance. There's a big difference. And so whenever they come, I often find that they've never really assessed their thoughts, and they haven't been taught. It's not anything we were ever taught, right? And it's fairly new information. But they were never taught how to assess their thoughts and think critically about their thoughts, and then identify which of my thoughts are true and which of my thoughts are fed to me by afsaq al-fusaq, by the most corrupt of beings, which is shaitan. And so he'll come to you and he'll say things like, prayer is like so difficult. It's like such an inconvenience. And you're at work all day, and it's important to just pray in your heart and believe in your heart. And so that is immediately something that we recognize as a lie, because he is trying to weaken your faith. He's trying to weaken that relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And so that has consequences later on down the road. So we have to watch our thoughts, because our thoughts become eventually actions. He may come between a father and his teenage son, and he may tell him things like, your son doesn't respect you. Look at the way he looks at you, and look at the way he responds to you. You need to show him who's boss. And so the dad feels like a surge of anger that is fueled by shaitan, right? And the dad thinks it's his own thoughts, but it's not. And then a whole argument or fight ensues. And then it ends up in the son being kicked out of the house and being disowned by the father or the parents. And there are many situations that I can name to you of similar scenarios that happen, and worse. So whenever we feel sad, and whenever we're anxious, and whenever we're doubtful of ourselves or of Allah, we are actually unable to recognize the blessings that we have in our lives. We are immersed in blessings, and we don't recognize them. And so that is a difficult test, right? Because you're actually far better off than many people, but you don't see it. You're actually blinded to the fact that you're blessed. And then, you're not able to worship Allah adequately, the way that He is meant to be worshipped, because you're so preoccupied mentally with your anxiety, with your sadness, with your fears, and you can't really think clearly about anything else, or serving your community and being a beneficial member of your society at large. Um, it's important before Ramadan to really take some time out and assess your thoughts and assess what you tend to think about often and the nature of your thoughts, because actually 80% of our thoughts are negative in nature, which is a huge portion of our thoughts. And if you think about it, it now makes sense, because who is in there wreaking havoc on your mind, is at war with you, and it's shaitan, right? So once you understand that, it can greatly help. Now, a term that's often used in a form of therapy called internal family systems, and its founder was Richard Schwartz, right? And he talks about this concept called tormentor, someone who inflicts a lot of adab on you, right? Or causes a lot of pain and turmoil for you. And this term relates to this pandemic that we're facing today, because this pandemic, this virus, is tormenting a lot of people, right? It's tormenting them mentally, and it's tormenting them physically, and it's tormenting them on a family level. A lot of people have lost their jobs. A lot of people have lost their lives. And a lot of family members have lost their loved ones. And so it has a huge impact on our world. And so it's important to understand, though, that what torments us teaches us. There never has been a better time than today, than this crisis, for us to slow down our lives and for us to hit the brakes, and by force. It's not really by choice. And instead of running around, I know that I've appreciated this, so instead of running around and being caught up in, the kids' activities and the homework and your own work and the housework and, the cooking and the cleaning and all of these different things, some of these we're still doing, but all the ones that were outside of the home that were distracting us are now no longer part of the picture. And so we have to face ourselves now, and we have to think about all the things, and it's often the biggest challenge is for people to be alone with their thoughts. People thinking about their aging. I'm getting older, and I might get sick, or I might die soon, or what are my kids going to do without me, and what kind of legacy will I leave behind? And also, for the younger ones, will I ever get married, and will I ever have children, and will my children obey me and be good to me as I grow older? And so these are very valid things to think about, but they can really torment you if you're not guided in the right direction of how to think about them. And so pay attention at this time as you spend time alone, right? And I think that's really important. You're quarantined and you're locked into the same house, all in the same house, but you should take time away from one another for a little bit in order to take a break and spend time just contemplating and thinking and reflecting, especially with the time of Ramadan being around the corner. This is the perfect time for that. And think of see what comes up for you. What are the things that surface for you as a result of this epidemic tormenting us? And then note them down, because that often shows you where you need to heal. That is exactly a sign and indication from Allah that these are the things that I need to work on strengthening, fortifying, paying attention to, and giving a little bit of love and care to. And then observe and have compassion for yourself. The past is the past. You don't want to live there, because you will find that you experience a lot of very depressive symptoms. And if you're living in the future, in a time that hasn't happened, and you're constantly reflecting on things that haven't happened, and actually most likely, studies show that most of what people fear doesn't materialize, doesn't actualize. And so that's a relief, right? And we have dua as well as our silah, as our weapon to protect us from, inshallah, calamities and tragedies. And one of my favorite ad'iyah to make is Allahumma inni a'udhu bika min jahdi al-bala' wa darqi al-shaqa' wa su'i al-qada' wa shamatati al-a'da'. That's a very good dua that the Prophet ﷺ used to make very often to protect against the harshness of trials. So even when we're tested, Allah is gentle with us, inshallah. Now, uncertainty is very relatable to what we're experiencing now. And there are 3 steps to dealing with uncertainty. Think about what identity, we all assume many different identities, right? You can be a mother, you can be a teacher, you could be a friend, you could be a wife, you could be a daughter. And so at this time, which one of those identities is being challenged for you, right? Identify what that is. Actually take some time to think about that, because that will help you address it. And then acknowledge what's difficult about this. So maybe a father who's a single parent, his wife is deceased, for example. He is used to being out of the house and working and then getting help with his children. But now he's stuck at home working from home, and now he also has to be a teacher, and he's not used to that. So that causes a lot of anxiety for him. And so what is difficult about this is important to identify. And then lastly, shift your focus from control, because the ultimate control is in the hands of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and then shift it to choice. So I choose in this period, in this difficult trial, in this difficult ibtila, I choose to be more courageous. I'm actually going to stand up to my fears and my anxiety. And that's the only way that I'm really going to overcome it. And then, what is it that I'm choosing? Am I choosing courage? Am I choosing to reach out to people and get help? Because the hardest word to say is help me. And so you need to have the courage to be able to ask for help. And I know in a lot of our cultures, that is actually something that's very hard to do for people. But once they experience what receiving help looks like, it becomes much easier for them, and they see the value in it. And recognizing that you can do your best, but you can't do it all, right? And that's where the self-compassion comes in, surrendering your desire to control things, because we love to control things, and just surrendering to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and allowing Him to guide us to how we can better deal with the situation. And stress actually makes you social. And the only thing that I'll say on this slide, because I know I'm running out of time, is that whenever something bad happens to us, or whenever we have a very stressful day or a very stressful experience, something inside of you really pushes you to want to tell other people. And so you'll want to tell someone else. It's not necessarily a whole circle of friends, but you want to share it with someone. Maybe your parent, if they're still alive, and maybe your sibling, or maybe a close friend. You have this inner nudge that's tugging at you to tell someone. And that's because of a hormone in the brain called oxytocin. And I'm sure you've heard of oxytocin before. It's known as the cuddle hormone, and it's responsible for a mother loving her child, a daughter loving her mother, or a son loving his parents, or a couple loving one another and caring for one another and caring for others, right? And so this hormone is, whenever we experience a stressor, Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has created within us, within our system, within our body, a counter-reactive mechanism, which is to heal from the effects of the stressor. So yes, you will experience trials, and yes, you will experience stress. However, as a result of sharing my difficulty with someone, right, it could even be a professional, then I immediately start releasing oxytocin, which stems from my brain, and then it heals the effects of stress in my heart. It protects my heart from the effects of the stressor. So essentially what that means is, when I reach out to share with others and receive care and love from others, I'm actually helping protect my body from the effects of stress, and that helps you heal and recover. And so caring creates resilience, right? And then it's no wonder that in our faith that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala highly encourages us, and in the sunnah, throughout the sunnah, we're constantly encouraged to not just think about self, but think about others and serve others. Service and khidmah are huge in our faith. And so we need to contribute in whatever way we can, with whatever amount of knowledge that we have. And that is really important, because that's a form of caring for others, and that creates resilience. And people who serve others greatly are less impacted by the stressors that they experience in their lives. And so knowing this before we enter Ramadan is important. because you can cook for people and drop off food, make sure that you sanitize. You can call people virtually and have iftar together if you're someone who lives on their own or your children are far away from you. Make sure you connect with others because this lessens the impact of stress. And I will end with this slide. It's important to identify your refuge this Ramadan. So, and we know our refuge is, we seek refuge in Allah, and nasta'id billah. So I seek refuge in external sources, and I also have a refuge internally within myself. And what are those refuges? So it could be a partner, and it could be a parent, and it could be salah and dhikr, right? And those are very important refuge, as a source of refuge for us that we turn to comfort us in difficult times. It could be your social circle, and it could be as simple as chocolate. And then we have internal sources of refuge, which is Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, who will always be our constant in the midst of everything that's changing around us. Knowing that you're a person who has good intentions. And even if people don't see that, that's okay, because you know that, and Allah is a witness to that. And so reflecting on all the times in your life in which, whenever things are tough for you, go back and reflect on the type of heart that you have. Am I a person that typically intends well for others and wishes well for others? And maybe if I don't always wish well for others, that's something that I can work on purifying and bettering. Being more mindful and thinking about all the individuals in your life who have loved you into being who you are today. Those who didn't judge you, those who didn't comment about you, whether you're doing something wrong or whether you're doing something that they don't approve of. But they were always very loving and caring with you and supported you throughout your ups and downs in a very non-judgmental way. And they really wanted to see you be your best. And so no one can come and take that away from you. We all have those individuals in our lives, alhamdulillah, who, again, ICH for me was a big part of that. And so thinking and reflecting about those individuals and making dua for them is huge also. That Allah places barakah in their health and their wealth and their time. And I thank you all for listening. I pray that this was of some benefit, inshallah. And jazakumullah khairan. And if anybody has any questions, please don't hesitate, inshallah, to let me know.
Thank you so much, Hiba. This was such a wonderful topic. I actually find that in our halaqah, the idea of mindfulness and compassion comes up quite a bit. There's a few questions that came in. I'm going to read the questions that were texted in the group, and then I'll open up the mic for people who want to ask questions. One of the questions that came in is, do you have any tips? People are writing. Do you have any tips for self-discovering one's triggers?
Yeah. So discovering one's triggers, I don't recommend that you do that on your own. And the only reason for that is because it could create a lot of anxiety and depressive reactions in someone. And you'll know what your triggers are actually as soon as, if you just observe yourself. I want you to imagine as though you're stepping outside of a building and looking inside of a window at yourself. And I have this slide actually right here. Sorry, one second. And I just want everybody to just look at it really quickly. It has here number 3. It has reflection and exploration strategies. And this is a perfect way to identify what your triggers are without getting help from someone. Although I do recommend that down the road if it is something that comes up for you very often. So journaling, you can have a journal. And reflection is a very big part of our faith. Tafakkur and tadabbur and all of these things are really important because it creates insight. And without insight and reflection, I am unable to change because I don't recognize anything about myself that needs healing or needs to be changed. And so looking at journaling, having a journal next to your bed at night, and after you do your, you pray Salat al-Isha and you make your azkar, and then you sit and you write in your journal and about what happened in your day and how did you respond or react to those things. That's very critical. And you'll know where your triggers are by the way that you responded, and it just doesn't feel good. I don't admire, I don't respect the way that I responded, and we'll have those moments. And so reflecting on that, right? I should have said something better. I should have been kinder. I shouldn't have snapped. And usually when you snap or you lose your temper or you get really irritated, that's how you know that you're being triggered, right? That's the first sign. And you can identify that easily through journaling or through talking it out with someone else, right? That really helps as well. And I hope that answers the question.
Yeah, no, that was a great response. Someone's asking where we can find this PowerPoint. Do you have a link to it? Is it on the Khalid Center website?
No, actually, this is one that I just came up with on my own, and I could share it. I think someone is asking me to share it, to access it, so I have given them access. And I could email it to you, Sara, and if you can email it to anyone who would like to look at it, I'm fine with that, inshallah.
Okay, that would be awesome. I have a question that came in that says, when it comes to a lot of health issues, including mental health, it's usually death by 1,000 cuts. Usually it's not one single event that wrecks you. So in your experience, what are some common things to look out for in ourselves as well as family members and those around us that may lead to mental health issues later on?
That's a great question. It's a very loaded question as well. I doubt that I'll be able to answer it all, but I'll do my best. The things that contribute to a decrease or a decline in our mental health it starts with the slide that I talked about, about shaitan and the whisperings, and you starting to believe that those thoughts are your thoughts. Because your mode of interpretation of how you interpret events that happen to you and circumstances that you find yourself in, that is the primary point where we need to start, right? You have to start there with yourself. How do I interpret what happens to me? Does Allah hate me? Some people come and ask me, does Allah hate me? Because if that's the case, that's what I believe, and I might as well just leave the faith. And so I provide psycho-spiritual counseling, so it's rooted in Islam. It's rooted in the Islamic teachings because our faith is beautiful, and if you understand it correctly and from the right sources, then it can be very healing. However, there are many experiences with individuals who are Muslim, unfortunately, and sometimes those are your parents, and sometimes those are relatives who claim to be, very pious and very religious, but yet sometimes there can be a lot of abuse or a lot of, whether it's verbal or financial or emotional, and many other forms, unfortunately. So people don't know how to interpret, why would Allah allow that to happen to me? Why was I abused as a child when I was young and helpless? Or why did I lose my parent when I was only 6 years old and I never really got to know my parent? Or why do I keep failing every time I try to have a relationship in the right way? And so not knowing how to interpret the ibtila'at that happen to you from the right lens can cause a lot of torment. And that's when you need to learn, first and foremost, how to interpret what happens to you. Because maybe the way that I'm interpreting it is wrong, and it needs to be rectified, it needs to be enhanced, and I can better it by speaking to the right individuals who, inshallah, can guide you into interpreting things better, which gives you more like inner peace and peace of mind. And of course, I wasn't able to answer that fully, but I did my best in the short time that I had.
Yeah, it was a very, very loaded question.
Yeah.
Someone is asking, do you have a website that we can read more about your knowledge? I'm guessing like links that you recommend.
I don't. I am just, part of the Khalid Center, and my information is on the Khalid Center website. And usually you have to go through admin to be able to reach me, because we do get a lot of individuals who reach out. And I also have my email at the Khalid Center that I can just write here for individuals. If anybody would like to reach out, I will do my best to answer everybody inshallah, in a timely manner. And please forgive me if I overlook your email or if I miss it somehow.
Okay, I think there's another question in the chat.
I do see that. If you meant well by offering help to someone you truly care about and they see your offer to help as demeaning and cut you out of their life and you keep apologizing and they don't respond, you deal with that, especially when it stresses you out that you are misunderstood. You know, it's really important to allow people to go through their own journeys. And sometimes someone is experiencing a lot of insecurity or a lot of internal struggles. And, you know, them responding to your well-intended apology in that way indicates, first and foremost, that they are struggling internally. And maybe they're not ready to hear your apology. And maybe they're not ready to accept it. And they're holding on to it because it gives them power over you in a certain way. And so this is one of the main reasons why people don't accept apologies, is because it gives them power to be mad at you. It gives them power to dislike you and be angry with you. And let them have that power, because you have Allah, who is your witness, who is shahidun, right, over everything. And that's all you really need. And I know it takes some time to get to that, to come to peace with that, but I won't be able to prove to them, you know, that I was right or I was misunderstood. At some point, Allah reveals all things. And you have to understand that with time will come that revelation, inshallah, and make a lot of dua for that, because I know it can be very painful to be misunderstood or people to attribute things to you that you never said or did. But if that happened to, you know, our prophets, you know, if our prophets were accused of major things, then who are we, you know? And of course it hurts, and of course it's very difficult to go through for anyone. But just reminding yourself and finding solace in our tradition and understanding that this person has to go through their own journey. They have to overcome their own insecurity, and I hope they get the help that they need. However, I can't stress myself out and to a point where I create dis-ease in my body. This is how diseases are created, by all of these negative emotional states that we hold on to. And so learning how to release that for myself is very liberating, and then allowing that person to go through their own journey and overcome what they need to overcome. And what I've seen is oftentimes these individuals do come back and they do apologize and they do recognize, not always, but I have seen it happen very often. And I hope the same happens for you, inshallah.
I'm also going to open it so people can ask questions. If anyone wants to unmute themselves and ask a question, feel free to do so.
Sorry, I actually see Sheikh Hamdi, and I just wanted to send my deepest gratitude and salams to him. Assalamu alaikum, Sheikh Hamdi.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa Allah. I am very happy to listen to your lecture today, but subhanallah, the internet doesn't work in our area, the whole area. So I am talking from the phone of my son Anas. So subhanallah, it's very signal. But wallahi, I enjoyed the part I hear. جزاكم الله كل خير. ربنا يبارك فيك يا رب. كيف جنة وكيف أختها اسمها إيه؟
Alhamdulillah, they're both doing well. Alhamdulillah. We hope to see you sometime soon, inshallah. After all of this is over, inshallah, Allah yajma'na ala khair, inshallah.
Ameen.
I hope to see you, inshallah. And Sheikh Hassan too.
Allah يحفظكم.
آمين إن شاء
بارك
الله.
فيك وأهلك وسلمنا على أهلك.
آمين. الله يسلمك إن شاء الله. جزاك الله خيرا شيخ حمدي.
يا رب. سامحوني بقى الإنترنت قاطع عندي بس.
No problem. I think Sada, you were saying something.
I was opening it up to people that have questions, but I see a question that came in. Not everyone has to type your questions. If you guys want to ask, you can unmute yourself or raise your hand and ask a question. But there is one question that got typed out. It says, what advice do you have for someone who lives in a toxic environment, like in-laws specifically, in that stay at home?
Yeah, that's very difficult if you share space with a lot of different family members. And I think one thing to understand about in-laws that I think can be very liberating is that, whether it's the in-laws on the side of the wife or on the side of the husband, you have to understand that they love, you love your spouse, but they love their child. And that love manifests in different ways. And sometimes love can be very possessive, and then sometimes it can be a healthy kind of love. But not everyone really knows how to love in a healthy way. And not everyone was taught, and not everyone had that example growing up. So you can't really fault people. I think the more mature you become, the more you understand that people only enact what they observed growing up, unless they made time and invested the effort to learn otherwise, or unlearn all the unhealthy things that they had learned and relearn them in a healthier way. So I think setting boundaries is huge. And you can set boundaries. I always use the term, compassionate but firm. So you can be very compassionate and not, compromise on your adab, because I definitely don't advocate for that. With elders, we always have to maintain adab. However, if they are someone that causes you a lot of pain, then maybe create some distance between you and them. Or if you haven't been able to get over some of the trauma that you may have experienced, or some of the challenges or some of the difficulties, then distance and love them from afar. Because some people, when you get really close, it really disturbs your inner peace, and it really bothers you internally. So maybe creating a little bit of distance will allow you to love them in a better way. And so you don't have to, maybe if you live in the same house, you don't have to engage in everything that they engage in, but serve the family in one way. Choose one way. Maybe I'll cook for everyone, or maybe I'll do the cleaning, or maybe I'll pitch in some way, because each person has to play an active role. However, I don't have to partake in everything. And so sometimes I will be a little bit distant. Sometimes I'll create some time for myself, and setting those boundaries and not hesitating to set those boundaries, because, your nafs has a haqq over you, and you have to take care of your mind and your heart and your body and your soul. And that's an amana upon you. So we don't want to be extreme in either direction, but you want to be balanced in the middle and just create healthy boundaries in a very compassionate but firm way. And I hope that helps.
Jazakallah khair, Hiba. Does anyone have any other questions?
Assalamu alaikum.
Alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
How are you, Hiba?
Alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah. So nice to have you with us today.
Thank you so much for having me. I am really grateful to share this this evening with you all.
Thank you. So I have a question, and I hope you can help, inshallah, give us a few tips.
Inshallah.
So my question is, can you give us some advice on how to keep from being all or nothing type of people, where if we don't do everything correctly, we might as well quit?
So one interesting thing about that I found is that when you're of the all or nothing mentality, which is actually, it begins with a cognitive distortion. It's actually identified as an all or nothing distortion. Like I'm either all in or I'm all out, right? And if I'm on a diet, for example, and I ate a piece of cake, that means my whole diet is down the drain, and it doesn't work that way. So I think understanding what is it that's underlying that all or nothing mentality. And what you'll find is that there's something you're trying to prove to yourself, or you're trying to prove to someone else. Maybe you're trying to prove your good intentions. Maybe you're trying to prove that you're a really good person because you've often been misunderstood. Or maybe, there's something else that, that is deep within the individual, and that's pushing them to really give it their all. And then one slight disappointment, and then everything is thrown out, right? So you throw the baby out with the bathwater, with everything, right? And you don't retain anything at all. And that's not going to be sustainable in the long term. You're going to fall, and you're going to have to learn how to pick yourself back up and dust yourself off and keep on going. And as long as you have breath in you, you keep trying, right? And that's a mercy from Allah, that Allah wants to give you another opportunity, another chance to keep trying. So keep remembering that I'm still alive. And so Allah is really giving me another opportunity to give it another go, right? And that requires courage, right? And give yourself time to work up that courage and try it again, and make sure your intention intentions are there in the healthiest way, and then, give it another round, inshallah. And I hope that helps.
And then I just unmuted you so you can ask your question.
السلام عليكم.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله.
عليكم السلام.
الله يجزيكم الخير إن شاء الله على اللقاء الجميل هذا.
وإياكم الله.
معلش أنا سؤال هحكيه بالعربي، هتجاوب بالإنجليزي هتجاوب بالعربي.
إن شاء الله.
شو تعطي نصيحة لربة البيت اللي هي حاليا عم تاخد اكسترا زي ما تقولي جوبز في حياتها، اللي هي اصلا كانت اوريدي عندها فول تايم، فما بالك هلا مع انه هي قاعده من الصبح برضه كمان عم بتكون مع 4-5 اولاد، كل واحد بصف، كل واحد في مكان، وبدها تتبع معهم كلياتهم، ورمضان جاي وهي لحالها في البيت. فتنصحيها تتعامل مع نفسها وقديش مهم هي تعمل وقت لحالها. فما بعرف يعني سؤال ريليتد للمحاضرة ولا لا، بس
yeah, absolutely, that's fine.
بس عم بصير إن إحنا اللي عندنا مسؤوليات، أولاد قاعدة في البيت، إحنا للساعة 3 الصبح معاهم في الدراسة، وبعدين هوم ورك، وبعدين باقي عندك طبعا.
Yeah, of course طبعا. Yeah, ممكن أجاوب عليك إن شاء الله. هو I'll say it in English just in case.
It's okay, no problem.
But there was actually a very recent research study that I was looking at for a paper that I was writing, and it talks about the more roles that you play in your life, the more happiness and fulfillment that you will feel. However, the downside of that is that you will get very burnt out. So if you're describing that, mashallah, you're a hero and you have like so many different responsibilities and roles, and may Allah give you the strength, but it becomes, with every added role and responsibility, it becomes critical that you take some time for yourself, even if it's just once a week. I'm going to take 1 hour for myself, just to read, or just to take a nap, or just to shower, or just to call a friend, and just regain some sense of sanity, because being very spread thin can lead to burnout. And always remember, no one will need you the way that you need you. So as many people, and I know in our culture, actually more than our faith doesn't advocate for us to erase ourselves for the comfort of other people, but we take this whole concept of sacrifice sometimes to a very unhealthy degree. And so absolutely sacrifice for your loved one is absolutely 100%, but not at the expense of your health and your mental well-being. So mashallah, you're doing so many different things, and that's incredible. However, you do need to take some downtime. Again, even if it's only like 1 hour a week and that's all you can afford to take out for yourself, it becomes wajib upon you to take some time to really just do whatever it is that you would like to do to unwind and relax, because that will, keep telling yourself that will make me a better person, that will actually make me a better mother, that will make me a better employee, that will make me a better member of my committee or my masjid, because I'm happier. And if you're miserable, you're of no good to anyone, because there's social contagion. How I feel affects everyone around me. So if I'm down, everyone around me is going to sense it, and then it's going to impact their mood as well. So it's important for you to make sure that you're uplifted, that you feel good, that you're staying sane and healthy. And that's why it becomes really wajib for you to take some time out for yourself, the more that you're doing, inshallah.
Jazakumullah khair, Hiba. Are there any more questions from anyone else?
Can I ask you a question, please?
Yes, of course.
Assalamu alaikum. Thank you so much, sweetheart, for your...
Thank you. Thank you for listening.
Thank you. It makes my day. Every night I look forward to this. This is actually my time, is with the lectures, and alhamdulillah.
Alhamdulillah.
Thank you so much. I have a question.
Yes.
Okay. I kind of get upset when my kids because I like to do wudu before and get things done before. Like I multitask a lot.
Yeah.
And like for instance, my prayers and telling my kids to pray, I have to like tell them to do wudu before like 5 to 10 minutes, and no one listens. I have a 15-year-old, a 12-year-old, and a 22-month-old baby. So I have to like tell each person what to do so many times, and no one really listens. And they have a dry eraser board. And I've actually been homeschooling since September, so
Oh, wow.
I'm used to this.
Yeah.
But I get kind of upset where it just triggers me, subhanallah, and little things affect me that because I'm trying to tell like 5 to 6 people what to do.
Yeah.
And I forget about myself, you know. Like, what do you recommend, subhanallah, that how I can calm down and not get angry?
I think it's really important to remind yourself that you are not mukallaf for like their behavior and what they do and what they don't do. But all you can really do is lead by example. And I think when they see that you're making wudu and then you're just pausing everything. So let's say they're watching TV and you're asking them to make wudu and they're not listening.
Mhm.
So I basically pause everything and I take away the remote and I say very compassionately, it's time to pray right now. So whether you come and join me in prayer or not, we're not watching TV at this time. And I'm going to go and make wudu and get ready for salah. And I do expect that all of you join me, and in a very calm way, because you have to model whatever it is that you want to see them do. So, something that, like, for example, I do with my daughter, and she's 12. Granted, she's not, older, but we model for her like being very excited about salah and being very excited about fasting, which is hard because sometimes we're worn out and we're really tired and we don't have the energy. And we do a lot like of activities and crafts and things like that to get in the mode of like for Salah, like we did a huge Salah party for her at the age of 7, and we don't normally do birthday parties because we don't want to make that a big deal. But we got her really excited about Salah. Another thing that you can do for prayer to encourage your children to pray is, getting a scrapbook and having all of your friends and loved ones write a message for your children in that book about what Salah did for them in their life. And then having each person write just a small paragraph and put it in that scrapbook. And it becomes your children's prayer book. And maybe you can do that for each child. And so that, whenever they feel down and they're not as motivated to pray, which is very natural, it's very human, then they can look at that book for inspiration and motivation. And because Salah is one of those things that's really hard, and it really is hidayah from Allah. However, they have to see that excitement. And oftentimes we're so busy, we're running around, we just do the fard and maybe a sunnah, and then we're on the go again. However, we do have to model that calm and model that excitement about Salah and about fasting and about all the pillars that are difficult for young children to understand or even do. And so I think maybe the prayer book might help, and then shutting off everything and saying right now is the time for prayer, and having someone do the adhan right at home. That's another way to motivate them. And maybe tell them the story about Bilal being the mu'adhin, arihna biha ya Bilal, right? So having like those little strategies, they can go a long way, especially if you do them very consistently. So they know, for example, that 7:50 is Maghrib time, and everything is going to be shut off, and we're all going to pray. And even if they don't join you in the salah, just making dua for them, but modeling. All that I control is me doing it and me modeling it for them and praying that at some point they join in, inshallah. I hope that was helpful.
Thank you so much. I appreciate that.
Of course.
Jazakallah khair, habibti.
Ayakum. Ayakum.
So there's a question that came in that says, is therapy most effective when done in presence of a therapist, meaning face-to-face, or is a phone call with a therapist just as effective?
Yeah, so these are tough times because we're all doing sessions virtually now. And to be honest with you, I think there's nothing like the power of the human presence. So us being present in person is very effective and powerful. However, given our circumstances, if all you have is teletherapy, that can also be very effective. And this is a great time to start because life is on pause. And so if you're ever going to work on things, it could be now, right? This could be a perfect time and an opportunity from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala granted for you to work on these things. So I always opt for in-person. And of course, at the Khalid Center, we have it set up where males are typically, if it's individual therapy for males, they're given a male therapist. And for females, they're given a female therapist. And if they're a couple, then we can see the couple together. And just from an Islamic perspective. However, it wouldn't be haram because it is where we are considered like, mental health providers or, health professionals. So it's as similar as you going to see the doctor. So definitely teletherapy is impactful if that's the only option that you have at this time, inshallah. Did I answer everybody's questions? I hope. Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi. So nice to see you here.
I have a question.
My amazing father-in-law, Dr. Samir.
Assalamu alaikum, Hiba.
How are you doing?
Alhamdulillah. My question to you, how does a grandpa reconcile seeing his grandchildren growing and like the Saida in Egypt say معزم الولد لولد الولد. So how do I reconcile as a grandpa when I see my grandchildren are growing and I see them remotely when I'm used to see them close to me? How can I reconcile emotionally?
Jazakallah khairan for your question. I think it is hard on everyone at this time for different reasons, and like your reason is not being able to see your grandchildren in person. But I think telling your mind, that this is temporary, this is something mu'aqqat, and it's not long term, may help put your mind at ease and put your heart at ease, in the sense that this is not, inshallah, going to be long term. And there are many individuals within the healthcare field that actually say the opposite of what we are being told, and that it may last up until the fall or next year, and they're saying otherwise. So inshallah it won't be that long, and if you just tell your mind just this is very short term, inshallah this is very temporary, and you're actually one of the most resilient people that I know, so I have no doubt that you'll be able to pull this off very well, inshallah.
This morning we were in a halaqah with Sheikh Hamdi, and we were talking about you coming tonight, and somebody said, who is Hiba Elhaddad? And Sheikh Hamdi said she was a little child, she was raised in this masjid. So I responded to Sheikh Hamdi, I said, yes, we raised them when they were small children, now they're coming and they're teaching us. So thank you for what you shared with your knowledge tonight.
You're actually our first teachers. We're just secondary or tertiary. We're not the main teachers. Please keep us in your dua, inshallah.
Inshallah.
Thank you, Amun. Jazakallah khairan.
And it's very clear that the masjid really loved and enjoyed this and needed this. Inshallah, we can have more of these kind of mental health and type talks, inshallah.
You guys are awesome putting on these events, mashallah. May Allah bless Hawthorne. It's always active, mashallah, with all these great events.
I mean, the community is always filled with great people, and it's such a blessing to be part of it.
Just like you, mashallah, and your family, Dr. Saeed and Khala Amani, mashallah. I want to go ahead and close it out. If there's any last questions, I'm going to say, we have...
I have a follow-up question.
Room for one.
Okay.
Go ahead. Yeah.
So,
I have a recommendation for Eva to talk to Adib to get ready to talk about the health situation since she is with Kaiser.
Oh, inshallah. Inshallah in the future. Inshallah. We would be happy to do that.
Okay, so my question was, how do you generally deal with homesickness? What would you suggest?
I'm sorry, I can't really hear the
How do you deal with homesickness? I'll just write it down.
Sure. Thank you. Alaikum Dania.
Sam, Hiba. So good to hear you.
I know it's so nice to see you guys and see your name on here. Alhamdulillah.
I really enjoyed this.
Thank you. Jazakallah khairan. Ideas on dealing with homesickness. There are a lot of things that you can do to alleviate the feelings or the discomfort that comes with homesickness. Having, creating things within your home space that remind you of home. So having a lot of like little things that you brought from home with you or that can be sent to you. Cooking similar foods that you used to eat if you're able to. And FaceTiming with your family as much as you can. And then also the mind works wonders when you actually create things for your mind to look forward to. So individuals who aren't able to go home often, what you can do is set a schedule for yourself of when you can go home and visit, right? And even if it's like 3 months out or, every 4 to 5 months or once a year, when you have it planned and then you have a calendar in which you're counting down and looking forward to that date, that actually combats depression. It's something that we teach in the Kaiser classes for managing your depression. And feeling homesick is a state in which you feel a little bit depressed, a little bit down. It's not classified as clinical depression or anything like that. It's very natural. But setting dates in which you're able to go back home and visit, and then having things from your home that remind you of home, and cooking things or engaging in things that also connect you to home, creating as many connecting points between you and home can greatly alleviate that, inshallah. And I hope I answered everyone's questions. Please forgive me if I missed any. And thank you so much, Sada, for hosting me. I really appreciate it.
I'm excited to host you. I was very confused in the beginning. I thought I was bringing you to talk. It's like, no, Hiba's confirmed. We're trying to get you on there. I was like, okay. It's exciting. I just wanted to see if Sheikh Uthman will honor us with a dua.
That'd be amazing.
Marsha Hamdi to end this.
Assalamu alaikum.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullah.
What you want from me, Sarah, again?
No, mumkin, if you can end it with a nice dua for us, inshallah.
How you want me, Sheikh Hamdi is here.
I mean, you guys can rock, paper, scissors.
I know.
Okay.
Or maybe du'as from both of you. That would be great.
That would be great.
Sheikh Hamdi has internet problems, so go ahead, Sheikh.
إن شاء الله.
Sheikh Osman.
ربنا يتقبل منا ومنكم يا رب. إن شاء الله حاضر. الحمد لله رب العالمين. اللهم لك الحمد كله ولك الشكر كله ومنك الفضل كله وبيدك الخير كله وإليك يرجع الأمر كله علانيته وسره فأهل أنت أن تحمد وأهل أنت أن تعبد. اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على سيدنا محمد في الأولين وفي الآخرين وفي الملأ الأعلى إلى يوم الدين وفي كل وقت وحين. اللهم اجعل تجمعنا هذا تجمعا مرحوما وتفرقنا من بعده تفرقا معصوما ولا تجعل فينا ولا من بيننا شقيا ولا محروما. اللهم كما جمعتنا الآن على طاعتك اجمعنا في الآخرة في مستقر رحمتك وتحت ظل عرشك يوم لا ظل إلا ظلك ولا باق إلا وجهك مع النبيين والصديقين والشهداء والصالحين وحسن أولئك رفيقا. اللهم إنا نسألك العفو والعافية والمعافاة الدائمة في الدين والدنيا والآخرة. اللهم استر عوراتنا وآمن روعاتنا، واحفظنا وجميع المسلمين والمسلمات من بين أيدينا ومن خلفنا وعن أيماننا وعن شمائلنا ومن فوقنا. ونعوذ بعظمتك يا الله من أن نغتال من تحتنا. اللهم بلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان، اللهم بلغنا رمضان، ووفقنا فيه إلى طاعتك وإلى ما تحبه وترضاه عنا يا رب العالمين. اللهم ردنا إلى بيوتك في رمضان. اللهم إنا نقسم بك عليك أن تردنا إلى بيوتك في رمضان. اللهم ربنا آتنا في الدنيا حسنة وفي الآخرة حسنة وقنا عذاب النار. ربنا اغفر لنا ولإخواننا الذين سبقونا بالإيمان، ولا تجعل في قلوبنا غلا للذين آمنوا ربنا إنك رؤوف رحيم. وآخر دعوانا أن الحمد لله رب العالمين. سبحان ربك رب العزة عما يصفون، وسلام على المرسلين، والحمد لله رب العالمين.
جزاك الله خير.
وإياكم يا رب.
جزاك الله خيرا شيخ حسن.
وإياكم. جزاك الله خير يا بابا.
Thank you.
Okay, that concludes. I'm just going to put a reminder out there that we are accepting donations. If you guys can go to the ICH website and donate. Also, if there's any feedback you guys want to give as far as the talks go or anyone that you want to see, please feel free to do so. And Hiba, inshallah, will be sharing her slides. We'll find a way to share that with the community as well.
Inshallah.
Jazakallah khair, Hiba.
Thank you, Sarah. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. Have a good day.
وعليكم السلام ورحمة الله وبركاته.
Sister Sarah, somebody has to do adhan al-Isha.
Okay. Who's going to do that then, Maisha?